Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
We're really excited about the players that we were able to attract here in this recruiting class. I know this was a little bit different in terms of having an early signing date and then finishing up today, but we were pleased with the guys that we were able to attract.
And we're pleased that you've tuned in tonight. Good evening, everybody, and welcome in to Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock. Alongside Rodney Orr from TiderInsider.com, I'm WVUA 23 Sports Director Gary Harris. And Rodney, as always, we've got a great Pepsi product from Buffalo Rock tonight. Diet Pepsi. You know, my war with sugar, it's on again, off again. It's back on. And this time, I'm going to kick sugar, you know what. I'm off the sugar. I got a little bit of a headache, sugar withdrawals, but I'll battle through it. That's what team players do. As good as that Diet Pepsi is, there should not ever be any need for sugar. That stuff is good. Remember to pick up some great Pepsi products the next time you're at your local grocery store. Pepsi, a Southern original from Buffalo Rock. Well, Alabama hasn't played a football game since January the 8th, but the Crimson Tide just moved up in the all-time wins list. Notre Dame had to vacate 21 wins between 2012 and 2014, so the Tide moves ahead of the Irish to number 5 on the all-time wins list. Now, Alabama, you remember, had to vacate 21 games for textbook and then forfeit 9 from 1993 in the Antonio Lingham case. So really, if they had those 30 back, they would be number 2, and it wouldn't even be close, right behind Michigan. But Bama sneaking up on those 3 teams that are ahead of them other than Michigan right now. So the Tide moving up without even having to play. You also heard from Coach Saban about last week's National Signing Day. Of course, we had an hour-long Tider Insider Signing Day special live from the Zone inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. But, Rodney, for those who missed that, now is our first opportunity on regular Tider Insider TV to digest what happened 6 days ago. Alabama finishing 6th or 7th, depending on what national recruiting service you subscribe to. First time out of the top 5 since Nick Saban's first season, first time out of the first or second spot in like 7 years, and that got a lot of national attention. But all in all, you've had some time to think this class over, look it over. What are some of your takeaways now nearly a week later?
Yeah, well, I still feel the same. Again, I think what happened at the end was you lose a couple of players. You had a player or two who told you they were coming and signed elsewhere. And then what happens, Gary, is the perception totally changes of the class. You had 3, maybe 4 guys to this class that it looked like Alabama was in good position with, and you've gone from, you mentioned 6 or 7 to 2 or 3. So again, it's just a minor, really slight difference in terms of the perception of the class. But when you look at great players, look at Patrick Surtain. I mean, what a big pickup that was. I mean, he broke LSU's hearts, picking Alabama. Jalen Waddle, I love Jalen Waddle. I think he's a difference maker, a guy, you see the plays that he can make, is a great speed and elusiveness. Big-time player to get him from Texas A&M on signing day. Overall, I thought Alabama had a fantastic class, Gary. When you're talking about getting the cornerbacks that they did, 5 great defensive backs, pass rushers, Yabi Anoma is the #1 pass rusher in the country. Really, you can't complain. I think it's an outstanding class.
Would have liked to have gotten another defensive lineman, interior defensive lineman. Would have liked to have gotten another inside linebacker, maybe another wide receiver. But you're right. Quality is here. Numbers not going to be as high. We knew that going into signing day as some other teams in terms of available scholarships. Alabama chose not to take a quarterback. We feel like a grad transfer could be joining Alabama here in the near future, and possibly, Rodney, a grad transfer at the defensive line position as well.
Could, and certainly I think there also would, if they decide to go that route, Gary, the grad transfer, in terms of the defensive lineman, I think they also would like to have an inside backer if they can find the right one. We'll see.
More players could be coming for 2018. Well, the day after signing day, we found out what we thought was going to happen, and that was Alabama lost another assistant coach. Defensive line Carl Dunbar headed back to the NFL as the D-line coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's where most of his coaching experience is at. And then rumors that Bo Davis might even come back to the Tide proved to be inaccurate. Don't think Davis was going to be able to coach in the SEC anywhere. That's my feeling. But good for Bo. He's going to the NFL as well with the Detroit Lions, and that's outstanding to hear Bo Davis get a chance there in the NFL again. Of course, he spent some time with the Dolphins in the NFL with Nick Saban. Now, we still have nothing official from the university as far as these hires of offensive and defensive coordinators. Nothing on the hiring of Dan Enos, but we know he's here, and at some point, Alabama will have a full staff announcement. Rodney, what have you heard on the construction of this staff at this point? Now a defensive line coach is going to have have to be hired? Where does kind of everything stand?
Well, you know, we've mentioned all the guys. Josh Gaddis, we expect him to be the wide receivers coach. We expect Mike Loxley, and again, we don't know this, but we expect Mike Loxley to be the offensive coordinator. Nothing official on that. Dan Enos, what will his title be? You know, speculation is he may have some sort of title as well as being the quarterback's coach. We look on the defensive side. You've got Pete Golding, who was hired right before Christmas. He's a guy that I think, Gary, will probably be the inside linebackers coach. Will he hold some sort of title, co-defensive coordinator, whatever it might be? We'll see. Tosh LaPoy, again, he's been on the staff for a while. He's becoming the veteran on that. He is the veteran on that side of the ball now. So you look at him, he could be the defensive coordinator. He might be the guy who's calling the defenses. We'll see what happens. In the secondary, you have Carl Scott, who was formerly the safeties coach at Texas Tech and spent maybe a week or so, a short period of time with Billy Napier over at Louisiana Lafayette as his defense coordinator. I don't even know if he actually arrived in town before Nick Saban got him here at Alabama. So right now, that's the way it stands. A lot of people want to know who the defensive line coach is. I really think that's still kind of in the preliminary stages, you know, looking to see interview candidates, those types of things.
No rush right now. Recruiting cycle just finished for 2018. Still a few weeks out from spring training. So Alabama has time, Saban does, to make that hire. And as far as an official announcement on all these coaches, as he told a reporter down in Mobile at the Senior Bowl, he'll make it when he's ready. That's good enough for me. Well, still to come on Tider Insider Television, the Alabama basketball team picked up another huge win on Saturday, but what does that mean for tonight's game against LSU? We'll discuss. Plus, Avery Johnson makes his pitch to why his Alabama team deserves an NCAA tournament bid. And coming up, we'll be getting to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the number for the Daniel Moore New Life Art Hotline, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Or you can email us at TITV@WVUA23.com or tweet at us using that hashtag TITV. TITV. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. That is Tider Insider Television. We'll return after this break. We're getting used to this. Another big opponent for Alabama on a Saturday and another dominant performance by the Tide. This was a complete blowout. Alabama demolished Tennessee 78-50. That makes Bama fans happy. But the last 3 weeks, Alabama's followed up a big Saturday win with a midweek loss. And the Tide host LSU tonight at 8 p.m. Welcome back to Tider Insider TV. I'm Gary Harris along with Rodney Orr. Alabama has some disappointing losses, no doubt about that, but some really good wins. The Tide is 5-1 against top 25 teams this season. They're up to 33 this week in the RPI. And yesterday, head coach Avery Johnson made his case as to why this Alabama team deserves to be in the NCAA tournament.
I think you should be rewarded if you have that type of record against, you know, top 25 teams. I think you should be rewarded if you challenge yourself with your non-conference schedule. That's a decision that's at the hands of every basketball team in the country. You know, we weren't afraid to challenge ourselves in the non-conference, even if we did come up short. And I think, you know, if people are analyzing teams' resumes, the easiest thing to do, and I know bad news travel fast, is to look at maybe some perceived loss and say, well, they should have won that game. All right, well, let's go to the other side and look at, you know, the top 25 wins, and our record speaks for itself.
It does. I mean, total agreement with everything Avery Johnson just said. Alabama, if the tournament started tomorrow, they're in. No doubt about it. But you still have to finish. And Alabama has LSU coming in here tonight. They've still got road games, though, at Kentucky, at Auburn, and at Texas A&M. Mm-hmm. Those are going to be tough. But if they can just, I would say, just split these last 6 games and go 3-3, they're going to be in. They have played a legitimate schedule. They do have some big wins. RPI is good. This team, unlike the last couple of years where you knew they had to do quite a bit down the stretch to get in, all they need to do now is just kind of hold serve, in my opinion.
Well, you can see this team's a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you improved. You talk about the competition, Gary. It's obvious. They can play with just about anybody in the country. I mean, those last 3 wins, they blew Oklahoma out, blew Florida out on the road, came back and handled, what was Tennessee, number 15 in the country?
At the time.
I mean, it's amazing. I mean,
beat Auburn already?
Yeah, absolutely.
Beat Rhode Island? I mean, they've got some quality. This is a good basketball team. Still looking for that consistency in the sense that, and I think we'll see it tonight. I think they're going to play well against LSU. I think they're going to go to Lexington on Saturday with a lot of momentum. I think tonight's the night they follow up one of those big wins with another win. And if they do that, they're off and running. And I'm telling you this. I know Kentucky's going to be hungry. They've hit a tough stretch, but Alabama's definitely good enough to go into Lexington on Saturday and win. Now, next week at Auburn, that's going to be a tough one. With this Alabama team, when they play well, as you said, Rodney, they can beat anybody. I'm talking about anybody in the country. They've got the talent to do it. Well, don't go anywhere. The Alabama baseball team begins its season this coming weekend, and the Tide will be without two of its players, including its best hitter. Ouch. We'll have the details. And next, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Call now to get in on the Daniel Moore New Life Art Hotline, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. There's the email address, or you can tweet at us. Use that hashtag TITV so Brandon can find it on Twitter. We'll be back with much more of Tider Insider TV right after this.
I'm really excited. You know, we've been together 6 months. We've grown a lot in every area. I'm just excited to see what it looks like. I've been coaching long enough where every year you get multiple surprises, good and bad. You just never know what's going to happen when the lights come on, and excited to get our best 9 guys in the lineup and have another team in the other dugout and see what happens.
Coach Brad Bohannon saying he's getting used to surprises. He won't have his best 9 guys in the lineup on Friday because he was dealt a surprise. And we've been dealt a surprise. The Alabama head coach announced the suspensions of right fielder Chandler Taylor, arguably the team's best player, and pitcher Deacon Metters for a violation of team rules. Both players will miss this weekend's opening series, but are expected to be back with the team next week. And Rodney, this baseball team went through so much last year in addition to having a dismal season, although there was the sweep at Auburn. Coach Greg Goff let go after just 1 season on the job. Brad Bohannon comes in here from Auburn, where he was an assistant coach, to take over. All the players are excited. There's a lot of enthusiasm, but there's some holes, and particularly in the pitching staff. When your opening series on Sunday is already TBA, to be announced, your starting pitcher, this team does not have a lot of pitching depth. They're going to have to try to build some throughout the season. I think lineup-wise, they could be pretty good. Defensively, I think they could be pretty good, but, you know, it's going to require some patience, I think, being a fan. He's going to have a little time to get this thing going.
Absolutely. I mean, this is just the start.
Right.
I mean, you should be excited. You know, Brad Bohannon, certainly a young guy, very enthusiastic, has a great reputation for, you know, developing players, but also, Gary, a tremendous recruiter. And I think that's the key. You know, once he gets the players in here, I mean, I tell you, I'm really excited about what he's going to do.
I mean, I think the X's and O's are important, but I think the Jimmy and Joes are a little more important.
They really are.
Most coaches at this level, they can draw up some X's and O's now, regardless of the sport. They wouldn't be here, but got to get some players. And you're right, he's a terrific recruiter. All right, it's time to head to the Daniel Moore New Life Art Hotline. And remember, Daniel Moore's got that new painting coming up of the championship, Alabama's national championship, so be looking out for that. We're going to start it off by going to Northport and talking with Stephen. Stephen, welcome in. You're first up tonight on TITV.
Hey, guys. How y'all tonight?
Doing well, Stephen.
Hey, I got a couple of comments, and I've got 2 questions.
Okay.
Y'all got a beautiful set. I don't know who does it. Kudos to them.
Thanks.
And y'all's shirts and ties look wonderful once again.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Riley Norris, tell me, where's he stand? I know he's got injured out for the year. Is he going to be able to redshirt and come back?
My understanding, Stephen, is that he did not play too many games, so that he does have the option, from what I'm told, to redshirt. Now, I don't know if he wants to redshirt. I don't know if he wants to come back. I have not heard. I do think that he could put in for one, and we'll just have to see what happens with that. But I do think he's eligible. I don't think he played the maximum number of games to keep him from redshirting. What else did you have for us?
Last one. I know Colin Sexton is reported one and done. Is there any way he wouldn't be a one and done? And is there any other players on our team that would leave early?
Well, yeah, Stephen, I think Colin Sexton's gone. I mean, I think that was the plan from the time he signed. I think the coaching staff's aware of it. I think he's going to be a top 10 pick. I think he's gone. I think there are a couple other players who may look at the possibility. You know, John Petty may look at it. You know, last year Braxton Key, you know, put his name in and then came back. He might look at it as well. So I think that Sexton will be the only one that leaves, Stephen. But, you know, you're going to have players who are always going to look at their options.
Yep. Going to be interesting, Gary. I think the recruiting that he's done, no matter who leaves, I think now the way he's recruiting, you're going to continue to see Alabama really, kind of in terms of the talent, they'll be loaded. They're going to have some really outstanding players. I know that they've recruited what's the point guard down there coming in from Louisiana?
Yeah, it's a really, really good player.
Yeah, he's an outstanding player.
And of course,
and Tevin Mack, the transfer, a lot of people
from
excited
Texas,
about him.
Eligible.
And they still got a lot of young players that are going to be here.
Yeah, and the thing about Colin Sexton is they still got him the rest of this season. And maybe they can play on and on and on and make a run. Good call, Stephen. Let's go over to Birmingham and talk with Reg. Reg, welcome into TITV.
Yes, I want to get you guys' opinion on this exodus of coaches from the university football team. I wonder if it's with the exception of Jeremy Pruitt, are some of the coaches insecure, or maybe they're leaving because they didn't recruit as well as they were expected? What do you think? Why are we losing so many coaches?
Reg, you make a good point on some things. I think that some of it may have to do with recruiting. Some of it has to do with opportunity. I mean, Pruitt's going to be the head coach of Tennessee. Derek Ainsley had a chance to be the head coach of the defensive coordinator at Colorado State, and then got a job with the Raiders. Carl Dunbar is going back to the NFL. But, Rodney, you can take it from here. I do think that this staff that Nick Saban is putting together, I do think there'll be a renewed emphasis on recruiting. And I'm not pointing the finger at anybody.
Right, absolutely,
but I do think that recruiting is going to be a very important aspect of this new staff.
Absolutely. And I think that's fair to say, Gary. And again, you look at Carl Dunbar. You knew it was a matter of time before he was going to eventually end up back in the NFL. If it wasn't this year, I thought for sure next year. Jeremy Pruitt, you certainly knew he was going to become a head coach. Derek Ainsley didn't know that he was going to leave, to be honest with you. But, he had an opportunity at Colorado State to be the defensive coordinator. Then the job with the Raiders opened up. Gary, you look on the offensive side. Obviously, there was some change there when Brian Dable decided to go back to the NFL, which, there was a lot of people, even initially when he got the job, said, Brian Dable may eventually end up back in the NFL. So you can't really say that's a surprise. Maybe after 1 year, yes, but still. And then you bring in Josh Gaddis from Penn State because Loxley's now moving over. So, we'll see what happens. But I think that, I do agree with you, Gary. I think this is an outstanding recruiting staff.
Hey, folks. You're always telling me you can't get through. Phone lines are open right now. Brandon tells me if you dial our Daniel Moore New Life hotline right now at 205-348-9882, you can get through, and we will talk to you next. Also, Alabama softball coach Patrick Murphy recaps the Crimson Tide's successful opening weekend, how this team avoided a letdown down in South Alabama. We'll have all that, plus more phone calls. You keep it tuned right here to WVUA 23, Tider Insider TV, coming back after this timeout.
Door number 1 is winning, door number 2 is losing, but behind door number 3 is play your best every day, and that's the door that we try to concentrate. We don't worry about who the opponent is, or, we never use the word win or lose. It's always about play your best every day. Don't play the opponents, play the game itself. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've been successful.
The Alabama softball team got its season underway with 3 straight wins down in South Alabama last weekend. The Tide back on the road in Hattiesburg, Mississippi for the Black and Gold tournament down at Southern Miss this coming weekend. And we now go back to the phone line sponsored by Daniel Moore's New Life Art. And we've got an email first, though, that we're going to take from Andrew. This email in regards to Alex Leatherwood. How does he fit into the offensive line scheme? Is that the one we've got? Yeah, here it is. How does Alex Leatherwood fit into the offensive line? Does he have to play a different position, or do you move Womack to center? There's also some other players that may move. But what about Alex Leatherwood? He sure looked good coming in there and in that national championship game at left tackle.
You talk about all those freshmen that played, true freshmen, throwing him in there at left tackle when Jonah Williams went down early in the second half. What a fantastic job he did. It's going to be very difficult to keep Alex Leatherwood off the field. There's no question about that. You've got Jonah Williams back. You've got Ross Pierce-Baker back. You obviously lose Bradley Bozeman at center. You've got Lester Cotton back at right guard. You've got Matt Womack back at right tackle. But you've also got a young guy named Jedrick Wills who's competed at the right tackle spot that's a really promising player. And you've got some other young players, Gary, that I think are going to compete this spring. I think you're going to see them try a lot of combinations up front. They've got to find a new center. There's been some talk that maybe Jonah Williams gets a look at center. We'll see. Again, I think in the spring, you always see a lot of different combinations up front to try to find the best 5. So But they've got some really good players.
All right, now let's go to the Daniel Moore New Life Art Hotline and talk with Rick right here in Tuscaloosa. Rick, what's going on, man? Rick, you there? All right, Rick wanted to know about running more Wildcat. Maybe that's got something to do with Jalen Hurts. I don't know. I don't know if Mike Locksley will want to run some Wildcat. I never say never because Alabama's done it in the past. I don't think it'll be a staple of the offense, but you could see it.
Yeah, again, who really knows? I guess it depends on the personnel that you have. To be honest with you, maybe is he talking about maybe using one of the running backs in that spot? Like you mentioned, Jalen Hurts certainly fit that to an extent. So, we'll see what happens. Mike Locksley's certainly going to bring some changes, I do think. I think we may see even a more up-tempo, Gary.
Might be all kinds of possibilities in the spring. All right, let's go to Northport and talk with James. He's last up on the hotline. James, what's up, man? James, you with us? All right, James wanted to know about the grad transfer quarterback. Nothing official yet, James, but we do think there's a good possibility that a graduate transfer quarterback could be coming in. I think Nick Saban even referenced it a little bit last Wednesday.
He did. And there's some talk. All these fans were asking about Brock Purdy, Brevin White, the quarterbacks that Alabama recruited, James Foster out of Montgomery. We felt like probably Alabama would not take a high school quarterback. I think that decision was probably made later in the process. And, Gardner Minshew is a name that obviously is out there as a grad transfer. He was at East Carolina last year. In the last 4 or 5 games, Gary, he threw for like 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns. He really finished fast. But he's a guy that quarterbacked a junior college national championship over in Mississippi. So keep an eye on Gardner Minshew.
All right, we'll come back. Thanks for the phone calls and wrap it up right after this. As always, our shirts and ties are provided by The Locker Room in downtown Tuscaloosa, home of the original elephant wear and so much more. Go by and see Rush, Alex, and the crew in person or shop on their website at locker-room.biz. They'll have you looking like $1 million. That's it for the show. For Rodney, I'm Gary. Thanks for watching. Have a good night, everybody.